Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the vampires, going to be taking on the Greenskins, and I brought good old Isabella von Karstein. You don't see Isabella a whole lot just because the vampires have a plethora of great lord choices, but I figured a Isabella Banshee build could potentially be good in this particular matchup. The idea here is that we're going to bait out Effigy to get, if we can, onto one of these Banshees, and then use the item that Isabella has, the Blood Chalice of Bathory, which can only heal characters, lords or heroes, but does significantly increase their hit points, also gives a nice vigor buff as well. So I figured the double Banshee build could be pretty good against the Greenskins. They do have some magic damage options, but not a lot. So at the end of the day, you know, we can keep these Banshees on deck. For the rest of the army, we've gone very light on infantry, just a whole bunch of bodies to clog things up, 4 units of zombies, 4 units of skeleton spears, the 2 Banshees. We've also got 2 Blood Knights for elite choices, the Mortis engine in the center. So the idea here, rather than my typical like buffing up Graveguard with a corpse cart and also healing them, this is just going to be healing the chaff and rather doing the direct damage itself. The issue with the Mortis engine is it does have to be in melee, so we'll have to watch out for that. We've also got the dreaded, wherever they are, here they are, the Regiment of Renowned Vargeist, the Devils of Schwarzhofen. You don't get to see these guys too often either, so I figured I'd bring them. They're a fun pick. They do cause fear and terror, which is pretty good against the Greenskins. 107 weapon strength with their Frenzy active. Unfortunately, they just don't have the best AP values. At only 38 still. 53 melee attack and 34 melee defense means they're a little bit tankier than the regular Vargeist, so we'll see how they do here. For my opponent, he's got a front line of Black Orcs, Wurzag leading the way here with Fists, actually no Fists of Gork, interesting. Definitely would want that against the vampires in my opinion to help counter ethereal units, but he's got Brain Bursta, here we go, Foot of Gork, and FG to get, as well as the Bonewood Staff. No Squiggly Beast as well, interesting. He's got 2 Orc Biggins through the center, a back line with some Skulkers protecting the Rustiers and some Goblin Archers, a couple of Spider Riders out to the flank, and Death Creepers and Mangy Marauders as well. Pretty solid Greenskin army altogether, with just a few things I would fine-tune here or there, but overall pretty solid. I'm going to be dropping Curse of Years, which I don't typically bring, but I decided to bring against the Greenskins because it does give a plus 15 ability recharge. This means that Wa, which has to be in melee to reactivate, will gain a plus 15 ability retimer, and he won't be able to use Wa on the initial engagement, which is of course very critical for the Greenskins. So we're not going to get the best value from that. It is a relatively expensive spell at 11 Winds of Magic, but preventing that Wa right on the initial engagement is very, very important. Wurzag's going to have to get into melee for about 15 seconds if he wants to use that at any point. We come in for the Alpha Strike here. These nasty Skulkers just get plowed by 2 of the elite choices here, the Devils of Schwarzhofen and the Blood Knights, just going to immediately overrun into the back line here. My opponent trying to respond with Biggins and Black Orcs, but we've gone far enough to get on the Rustiers at the very least. You can see the Banshee also following up as well, going to be dropping a nice Terror Bomb. As soon as the Terror kicks in, those Rustiers are out of there. Meanwhile, a lot of the bodies coming forward. Good old zombies here clog things up at the end of the day, and man, I love this Ultra Ultimate Darkness map. It's one of my favorite looking maps, certainly. Meanwhile, Mortis Engine has gotten involved in melee, going to start that drain effect with plenty of bodies around to soak hits for it. Meanwhile, Blood Knights pulling back. This unit of Blood Knights has actually taken quite a bit of damage. My opponent's done a great job saturating them with like the nasty Skulkers and other units. So far, though, pretty decent. The Devils come back down for some more after getting some healing. These 2 units of Spider Riders going to respond. Very nicely played there. Help get that poison and just in general start to drag down the Devils. And a big old Foot of Gork coming down right next to the Mortis Engine. Looks like he's trying to clear out some of the chaff, supporting it so that he can start to get hits on the Mortis Engine itself. Does a pretty good job there, clearing out a whole bunch of Skeleton Spears and Zombies. Unfortunately, the 2 Goblin Big Bosses did get isolated by Blood Knights here. Going to get dragged down. Devils also continuing to fight here. Thankfully, due to their a little bit higher melee defense, they're able to sustain longer than regular Vargeist, that's one of their biggest issues, is they're low armor, low melee defense unit. They don't have also the greatest AP values, so they're kind of situational to begin with, but you can see the Blood Knights coming in here for a nice supporting charge. Biggins and Black Orcs following up, so an absolutely bloody battle ensuing. Obviously, the vampire is going to be getting the drain and the healing from this Mortis engine as it stays in melee here, and thankfully, we've been able to shut down the range pressure effectively enough, but my opponent hasn't really been able to fire at the Mortis engine much, which is, of course, the biggest risk. Is missile units. Only has 40 armor to begin with. The Rusty Arrows would quickly tear that down to 10. Looks like a Brain Burster going off to proc that Bonewood Staff map wide, and a wall also going down now that Warzag did get involved in melee. Didn't quite catch it, but Isabella managed to get a nice juicy heal, then popped Dance Macabre on herself and everyone in that pocket just to juice him up, and then she dove down and helped assassinate Warzag here. And Isabella's actually a pretty decent combatant, especially with Dance Macabre buff. It's since worn off, but shows up to 76 melee attack. She also has the hunger and decent AP values, 170 AP, not terrible. But of course Warzag does have low armor, so she'll be able to deal with him just fine. Banshee's providing some nice terror across the field, and at this point, with lots of leadership, the Greenskins are definitely looking at the south side of the engagement here. Mortis Engine and Blood Knight's going to probably follow up into the flank of these Black Orcs here as they try and chop through what little bodies remain of the infantry corps. I mean, obviously my opponent demolished my infantry here. The idea with them is just for them to die slow enough to let the Mortis Engine and the more elite units get the work done. So here come the Blood Knights just landing an absolutely brutal charge onto these Black Orcs here. Man, what an awesome looking combat, Blood Knights versus Black Orcs. Two of my favorite looking units duking it out here, the Mortis Engine being absurdly loud as it is. And yeah, I can only imagine that the vampires are like getting all these orc souls together to come feed them into this warp gate here to try and gain some kind of artifact or some foul ritual or something. You know, the vampires are up to no good, certainly. But at this point, the Greenskins are struggling to hold their leadership together. Rusty Air is getting caught once again by the Devils of Schwarzhofen, who are barely still on station with 3 unit models and about 400 health left. And at that point, critical army losses does hit for the Greenskins. Warzag was just chased off the side by Isabella, so yeah, well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. Not too often you get to see Isabella in action, so I figured you guys would be interested to see that. I do think that the Isabella double Banshee build potentially has some merit against factions which don't have the best magic damage options. Think like Beastmen, Greenskins, maybe against the Lizardmen as well, potentially. They don't have a ton of options for magic damage. All three of those certainly do have some options, like Sons of Goros. You've got the Eye of Morslib also does magic damage for the Beastmen. Of course, they have like Spirit Leech, which isn't the best against Banshees, but it definitely can do work over time. But again, with the Blood Chalice, you can kind of mitigate that a little bit. The Lizardmen really only have Arcane Unforging and the Laser Lizard for magic damage, so they don't have the most options. And then, of course, the Greenskins we saw here really only have Effigy to get and Fists of Gork, which one of those my opponent did not bring. And the other one, Effigy to get, was used to pin down those Devils of Schwarzhofen for my opponent to shoot at. Unfortunately, we were just able to collapse that flank so quickly. My Blood Knights very promptly got into the back line. We were able to bog down the missiles. It's one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of infantry skirmishers against the vampires. They're very hard to protect in a lot of situations. They just, there's zombie summons, there's elite cav that can punch through, there's flying units, there's chariots like the dreaded Black Coach that can get in your back line and muck up your missile units. So I tend to favor mobile missile units, skirmish cav against the vampires. Like, I think if my opponent would have cut these guys and just gone with like more Spider Riders, that probably would have been a better pick, in my opinion. The Black Orcs obviously cleaned up a whole bunch of kills in the front line against mostly chaff, but thankfully the Blood Knights 107 and 159 with XP chevrons to go around. 83 kills in the Mortis Engine and up to 3 XP chevrons. Did some really nice work. 39 kills on the Devils of Schwarzhofen, also not too bad. Again, they're not necessarily a competitive pick, they're more just for fun. This build is, I wouldn't say super competitive. It certainly has some good elements with the Blood Knights and the Mortis Engine. And Isabella and the double Banshee has some merit, although there's certainly an argument to be made for a different heroic core like Kemmler or Vlad or someone else. But overall, it's a pretty fun build. For my opponent, I would probably, like I said, I would probably cut down the infantry skirmishers to go with more of a mobile presence. Other than that, I think his build's pretty solid. I mean, Black Orcs are always a good pick against the vampires. Warzag is a pretty good pick, although I personally prefer Azag, just because you can put him up in the air and he's mostly fast enough to get away. Sometimes he can get caught, by like the Red Duke if he goes very aggressively with Dance Macabre, and combining that with Elsif, but still relatively safe up in the air. Also gives you that Spirit Leech to continuously poke away at your opponent's Lord. Wurzag's also a solid pick though, FG to get, and the rest of the buffs that he brings to the table. I definitely would recommend bringing Fists of Gork for the magic damage, so that you can deal with ethereal units. That way you're not sinking your FG to get. My opponent did a good job. That actually would have been a big waste of that ability to use it on the Banshees, because I have the Blood Chalice to heal that back up. But in terms of spell selection for Wurzag here, if we go ahead and quickly zoom over there. So yeah, Wurzag, personally in this particular matchup, I might take, Gaze of Mork I need to do some testing with, see if it's good against large targets. It might be worth taking to try and snipe out flyers, but certainly Fists of Gork with that magic damage and the extra melee attack and defense. Foot of Gork seems nice on paper, but I honestly find you get more value from the buff spells, and then to proc the Bonewood Staff, we're going to want one of the cheaper ones, so either Gaze of Mork or Brain Bursta, depending on what you want to do. Brain Burst is pretty good against busting up blobs of light troops like skeletons and zombies, so it's not a bad pick here, certainly. Then we're going to grab both the Bonewood Staff and the Squiggly Beast. The Squiggly Beast, especially with the extra power reserves, is always important. So just my thoughts on Lord selection there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, though. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, all that jazz. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.